the interest of time, we can begin. So my name is Jeremy. I'm from the Kenya Plastic Pact Secretariat team, and it's a pleasure that you are joining us today to have this discussion. So some few insight from us on how to effectively manage flexibles, either both the plastic but also fiber-based and or other forms. So we are riding on the clarion call that we need to move from beyond simply acknowledging that plastic is just problem to start implementing design-led solution so that we can change our landscape. So you are going to hear from the Kenya Plastic Pact and our colleagues from the Indian Plastic Pact, and Aline from Mexico will also share our contribution to the discussion. So we are joined by Abhishek from the Indian Plastic Pact and Aline, and we will try to keep this to 1 hour, but ideally is to have the 3 presentation, and then we can have a dedicated reflective session at the end of the 3 presentation, so that we have a detailed feedback, but also the Q&A. Nashon, our comms lead, is managing the in case we get to the session and you want to share your feedback, then Nashon will give you the mic access to try and share with us. So I'm going to ask Karin very briefly to take us through the Kenya Plastic target, which I emphasized in our 2030 roadmap. Very briefly, this is for the new people in the call that are interacting with KPP for the first time, so that you know our ambition, but also what we aim to achieve by then. And then from there, I will pick up the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So my name is Karin Boomsma, part of the Kenyan Plastic Pact, the Secretariat with my team. And we have actually each and every pact has the same targets, but not the same percentages to the targets that we want to achieve. And that's linked to the context of the country. So for us, it's target 1, elimination. So 100% of unnecessary and problematic single-use plastic we want to eliminate by 2030. And what we call unnecessary and problematic is depending on our context. It's depending on what kind of material recovery facilities we have, how our recycling looks like, and which materials are actually widely available and very unique in our landscape, and which we really can't use. The elimination is also linked to our single-use plastic ban that we have in the country, but it's not countrywide applicable. It's only in restricted areas. In our case, beaches, national parks, and protected areas. Then for target 2 is that we aim to have all plastic packaging reusable or recyclable by 2030. So if we do use plastics, then they either need to be reusable or recyclable. And for recyclability, we really push with the design guidelines for recyclability on specific uniformity of polymer types and compositions. We have already launched the guidelines for the PT and the HDPE, and today we will launch the flexible guidelines that will support us in that as well. Now, target 3 is what is actually being recycled effectively, and for us the target is 40% by 2030. And that is the hardest target that we are facing at the moment, as the measurements of where we are very complicated to get enough data to see, have we moved the needle from 9% to something else, is really a problem. And we're trying to see how else can we get the right data and see where we are heading. And then we have 15% of the average recycled content we want to have back in the plastic packaging. So bottle to bottle, for example, and we have multiple members that are currently working on securing that as well. So those are the targets that we handle in the Plastic Pact of Kenya.
Thanks, Karin. So please continue to use the chat box to post any questions before we can get to the reflective session towards the end. So some brief snapshot of the Kenyan market trend or the reality is that we cannot talk about the packaging reality in Kenya without a close look at the what we would call the Kadogo economy. In essence, this is the micro retail retailing model, so that it provides essential consumer product in very small unit to low-income households, so making it very accessible but also convenient to low-income households to access product, so either because they cannot purchase in bulk. So ideally, the micro retail model here is to address the purchasing habit, and we've seen some brands that are now shifting from the bulk packaging of their product to use of even the plastic flexible materials, because they have to meet this consumer demand, especially for the growing middle class or even the urban population, especially those in the informal. So I mean, on the positive side, it's a trend that is very vital for retail, but also supporting the economic growth. However, perhaps the use of the multilayer plastic flexibles present a very massive complex challenge, not only to the waste management, but also to the circularity itself. So all I'm saying is that we need to find a way to maintain the same retail accessibility for the growth of the micro retail model, but also make it very convenient for Kenyans to access this product, but at the same time try to be a bit innovative to shift to packaging materials that can be recovered rather than ending up in our landfills. It goes on in our snapshot of the current trend is to detail that we are facing a very severe recycling gap, especially of the flexible packaging material, because they have low recovery rates. That is either driven by the large multi-layer complex polymer composition. So at the end of the day, the informal environmental service providers, they do some very massive and fantastic job, but they struggle to recover even the flexibles, either multi or even mono, because there is already an existing market for rigid plastic, either because as a country we have the recycling technology that is there, but also the existing market for rigid as compared to flexibles. So we've seen some new trend of the EPR regulation that was gazetted towards the end of 2024, and it is mandating that producers bear the financial cost of recovering the packaging materials that is they are placing on the Kenyan market. And then on the infrastructure, what we are trying to communicate here is that generally there is poor waste management has been identified as a very serious issue that is preventing the optimal performance of our, let's say, drainage system. So we need to act better. So ideally, we are not only trying to blame it on flexibles or any other plastic, but to say that it has been a trigger that poor waste management of these materials has been emphasized not only by government, but by also other actors that is contributing to infrastructural failure to address the issues that they were designed to. So I know some of you in the call are already aware of different flexible packaging materials, either circulating in our local economies. So when KPP was drafting the document, we tried trying to provide a breakdown of the materials. So we're looking at categories based on their structure and the recyclability potential. So I'm just highlighting what we covered, but ideally in such engagement, we like to begin from the basics, building up so that our members understand what we are trying to communicate in the whole interest of breaking the complexities. When we talk about monolayers, so they consist of either a single layer film of, let's say, polyethylene or PP, and they offer the best pathway to circularities in managing, especially the plastic flexible material. So they are highly optimized for local material recovery and circular compactability. So provided that our collection streams remain free of the contaminants. And then, of course, as I will highlight in the few next slide, is the issue of the challenge of working with the multi-layer plastic flexibles. So due to the advanced structures because they contain either two or more diverse layers, is that they are engineered with to perform certain tasks. So either a layer to keep away the moisture, or even a barrier so that they can prolong the shelf life of products. So despite the multi-layer plastic flexibles extending the product shelf life, they remain difficult to process in our local recycling facility because the layers cannot be easily separated. And then, of course, moving on to the third category that we trying to synthesize in the report is the metallized films, so integrating a thin aluminum layer. So such materials, they provide extreme barrier protection required for delicate food product. It could be spices and all others, but despite their performance benefit, they introduce severe recycling complication because this metallic and the either metal and plastic mixture especially becomes non-recyclable waste within our current infrastructure. On to more details about the what I would call the monolayers, or the best scenario that we can work towards to is that I already emphasized they have a single layer simplicity, either because they are produced from a unified plastic polymer, or even a compatible blend of copolymers. And so the primary materials here can be the HDPE and even the low density polyethylene. And so looking at the recyclability of such materials is quite feasible because this monolayer format, they offer superior mechanical recycling. However, the crucial or even the crucial constraint is that the material stream must remain entirely free of incompatible polymers or contaminants to preserve the purity of the PCR. Now looking at the multi-layer flexibles, so we realize there are a lot of layers that perform different functions, and this is actually one of our biggest bottleneck to address. So think of, let's say, a standard snack packet, or perhaps a crisps, which is actually a very unique packaging product. So it's designed with a primary protective function. It could be there is the use of HDPE to prevent to act as a moisture barrier, or even the use of the ethylene vinyl alcohol polymer to prevent the loss of aroma in certain food product. So because of these different layers that are fused together, it's very practically irreversible to recover them. So these packaging materials cannot be recycled. So they become severe recycling obstacles, either as you can see, they are discarded either to the landfill, to the incinerators, but even if you walk across most of the urban areas, you'll see that they are discarded. And this is some of the menace that we are trying to address. I'll skip this. It's just a highlight of trying to create the difference or distinguish between the flexibles and the rigid. But by just stating that flexible or even the flexible packaging, they provide a high efficient barrier to weight ratio, and they are very low cost per unit. So the affordability of this material serves the retail model perfectly. So we must innovate to retain this benefit while switching to more materials with high recyclability rates. When I look at the document, which we'll share later, we're trying to provide some circular approaches to address flexibles. So you realize that when you read through the document, we are addressing flexibles that even appear as a shrink sleeve on a PET bottles that contaminate the recycling of PET, but also generally the flexibles, either in fiber-based, but also polyethylene and PP flexibles. So here, this is just a snapshot of some of the success of the Kenya Plastic Pact, where we brought some brands to just take them through a series of innovative workshops to try and move away from use of problematic and unnecessary in their business process. So as you can see in this, some of the brands were able to introduce a new tamper evidence of, let's say, the common one, which is if you open a bottle and there is a click sound, then it's an assurity to the consumer that it has not been tampered with. So such, by eliminating the PETG shrink sleeve that is highly contaminating the recyclability of PET. And then, of course, when you talk about that, is to just stress on the best practice that we have seen currently in the Kenyan market. So either reuse and refill, where we've noted a growing trend, especially for large-scale retailers, the likes of supermarket, partnering with the brands to introduce a refill station, especially for the dry cereals. So this can be actually built upon to advance some of the best practice when it comes to phasing out completely the flexibles, especially the multi-layer flexibles that pose a challenge to us. Now, this is the backbone of the document. So we opted for the basic, I would call it a traffic light system. So it allows the brands to identify the recyclability risk immediately without even needing a background in polymer chemistry. So if they are able to visualize data or whatever the document is trying to communicate through a familiar traffic light system, it provides that instant clarity regarding how specific packaging materials interact within the Kenyan ecosystem. So looking at the green rated materials, which represent the ideal scenario. So these are the design that utilize monomaterials that align perfectly with the mechanical recycling process, or even ensuring high quality and high value PCR that is coming from the process. So manufacturers and even brands choosing a product that falls under the green status, then they are actively participating in building a very robust economy. Then into the yellow criteria, which kind of falls in the middle ground. So in this category, So product categorized under that is that they might be technically recoverable, but they often require specialized infrastructure that remain limited within the local system. So the premise here is to caution. So rely on this if only you need them, and always try to work towards moving to the green status so that at least there is that progress, or what the regulator is calling the assistant, or even you make some steps towards the green rated status. And then of course on the red is any red rated packaging poses a threat to the recycling process. So because they have complex laminate that act as contaminant, so either often ruining the entire batch of the PCR, but also preventing proper melting or separation. So ignoring this category causes downstream failure, so effectively making recycling impossible. So redesigning away from any product that falls under the red category, it's not just a suggestion, but it should be a very critical requirement for every brand, at least to have that commitment to move away from that. So at the end of this, we'll try to actually justify if your goods fall under, let's say, the yellow or the red, when it comes to the EPL eco-modulation, then you could have actually be forced to pay high fees because we will struggle to recover and even manage the these packaging materials that you are presenting to the market. So we're trying to look at the aluminium foil and try to categorize it into this traffic light system. And so the green rate and design for the aluminium foil is to rely on a mono non-ferrous metal, so components that guarantee high purity, and even going a mile extra to make sure that the embossed labels serve as the perfect branding method, because this approach would completely avoid the use of even chemicals and even multi stickers that interfere with the material recovery. And then on the stop or the red status, it's often that these are designs that integrate, let's say, a plastic film layer or even a heavy ink coating. So these are very complex additions that create significant barriers to the material separation. So in particular, strictly prohibited due to their tendency to contaminate the recyclate and even cause physical damage to the recycling machinery itself. So adhering to these strict guidelines ensures that aluminium that we recover retains its high value, but also it remains a viable resource for the sector. Last, on the craft paper, on the fiber-based flexibles. So on the green rated, what we were trying to put through the document is that by saying that the total packaging material is made of more than 85% fiber, by ensuring that its weight is the weight of that packaging material, it's made from 85% of fiber-based material, then it falls under the green rating because it ensures high quality and even viable recyclate, but also ensuring that the printing surface coverage does not exceed the 50% of the total packaging area, so that at least it fits within the green criteria. But also caution applies to the paper-based fibers that either one side is plastic laminate, so provided that that material would remain above 85% of wood pulp range, and then making sure that any unnecessary labels or even viewing windows must be designed for ease of removal, either manual removal as the inseparable component significantly interfere with the recycling process. And then on the stop side of it is that any design that incorporate plastic laminate or even wax coating on both sides of the paper. And then even when you talk of the printing inks that contain high mineral oil, they represent another contamination risk that we must eliminate to protect the integrity of the fiber recovery system. So adhering to these strict standards ensures that our paper packaging remains a sustainable and also a recyclable alternative than other source of waste. Moving on to the polyethylene flexibles. So they form, we can all agree that they form backbone of the flexible packaging sector. So to achieve the green rating, what we were trying to put in the document is to ensure that the main structure or the main material consists of, let's say, more than 90% of PE, so by weight, so that at least there is high purity, but also going a mile extra of using compatible copolymers like EVA. So on the minor additions, you can look at when it comes for the barrier performance, so issues of making sure like the ethanol vigil alcohol polymer remains below 5%, because this will keep the material density below the 1 gram per cubic meter. So if the material has the polyolefin composite, it will automatically land in the yellow rating area, which, as I said, is the cautionary zone, because these materials are technically recoverable, provided the ratio of stays, let's say, at a minimum of 80% of PE and a maximum of 20 pp. So as I sum up on the criteria for the PE, is that on the red status, it applies to any design that introduces contaminants, so effectively rendering the material non-recyclable. So furthermore, so when, let's say, you introduce non-polyolefin polymers, or even using high density fillers like the calcium carbonate, which would push the density above the 1 gram per cubic, it causes that severe melt incompatibility, but also the contamination. So again, what the document aims to communicate is that the design details matter just as the polymer choice. So to make sure, like, for example, the total ink coverage must stay below 50% for you, either in the green zone or even the yellow zone, but also utilizing only water-based or even solvent-based ink that are compatible with the wash-off recycling process. So, and when it comes to the closure system and the spout, if they are made of the non-PE materials, is to ensure that the total weight must not exceed the 5% of the overall packaging material to prevent additive-induced gel contamination during the melting process. So what we on the, let's say, on the decorative features of the material is, if they cover more than 50% of the surface, or even the use of non-soluble, even water-resistant adhesive, will force automatically a red classification, as they would prevent the separation required for clean and high-quality PCR. On the last part in the PPE, So the preferred design, as highlighted in the document, is to ensure that a primary surface material of 90% or even more than that would make that product fall under the green zone. So perhaps if we are even looking at the barrier layers where necessary, you must utilize only the vacuum deposit of silicon oxide or even aluminum oxide, as they do not create the separation issues in standard laminates. In the cautionary or in the yellow zone, so here we are saying that if the primary material falls above 80% of the total packaging weight, then that would make it fall under that you need to make steps to ensure that at least you move to higher recyclability rate, because the design allow for slight or even lower threshold, provided that the PP remains the primary material at 90 or at 80% or higher. But also looking at the secondary materials, including the PE layers, is to ensure that they don't exceed 20% of the total packaging weight. So what we are trying to address, especially on the labels, is to ensure that for PP flexible materials, is that you should ensure consistency. So either utilizing matching materials, let's say like that would lead to a pure recycling stream, but also adhesives must be releasable at, let's say, 40% degrees to ensure that the labels would wash off effectively during the recycling process. And of course, in the avoidance of that is that the design element that degrade the value of the PCR, let's say metallizing the base material, would serve as a major challenge, because it's a result in that gray coloration, or even it affects the market value of the PCR, because if you are aiming for a transparent or even a high value application, then you are not able to achieve it. So standardizing this material specification will enable our local recyclers to produce high quality or even market ready resin. So once you go through the document, it's quite detailed. So this was just a highlight of how we're trying to use the traffic light system to grade what can work within the recyclability of flexible packaging material, but also what we need to address. And I know there will be a manual now with some very detailed illustrations of each component. Let's say if it's for polyethylene flexibles, either multi-layers, on how to try and guide the manufacturers or even the brands to understand how to completely work towards the green status. And then, of course, as I mentioned, is ultimately when we talk about transition towards the green category, it's not about sustainability. So it's a critical, but also a very financial strategy for the brands. So so under the Kenyan evolving EPR scheme, the eco-modulation can heavily be modulated or even based on the traffic light rating. What I am trying to say is that if your packaging remains in the red rated composite, then you can face a severe or even high fee to fund infrastructure, or even because the packaging materials that you are placing on the market is quite difficult to recover, but also to recycle. So that's how the good thing of trying to introduce design-led solution, especially to handle the flexibles, which is becoming a major concern currently within our space. So I will pause there and invite Abhishek to continue with the presentation and share their insight from the Indian space.
Thank you, Jeremy. I'll just share my screen and ask you whether you are able to see it or not. Just a minute. Are you able to see my screen?
It's loading. Yeah.
All right. I hope it is full screen now.
Yeah, it is.
All right. Thank you. So good evening, everyone. I am Abhishek Pawar. I represent Confederation of Indian Industry. We are the India's, before I get into the whole plastics and the design, the recyclability and circularity, I'll just give you some information about CII. So we are India's largest and oldest business association. We are about 134 years old. Our vision is to catalyze India's development and to increase the competitiveness of the Indian industry. We are into policy advocacy. We are into business engagement within India and across the globe. And we also engage the community. We also engage with the government and the consumers at different levels and for different purposes. So we have around 10,000 industry members who are directly the members of the of CII, and we have 365,000 indirect membership. I mean, there are smaller associations who are a part of CII. And we have 12 centers of excellence. I mean, there are other numbers on the screen, but I would want you to focus on the 12 centers of excellence. And we, within CII, we are also in center of excellence called as the Center of Excellence for Sustainable Development, which manages the India Plastics Pact. That's how we engage with the industry. We especially engage with the sustainability team within the industry, and more specifically packaging and R&D, because we understand to move things, it's important to engage with these teams and to sort of have the alignment with the people and the vision and the shared vision. So that's the idea. So I think apart from that, the vision of the India Plastics Pact, and I think all the pacts globally, is to eliminate, innovate, and circulate, eliminating the problematic elements in packaging, innovating where it is required, making the packaging reusable, recyclable, or compostable, and circulating, basically adding recycled content so that we keep the plastics in the economy. So that's the vision of the pact. Of course, I mean, there are 13 pacts globally, and we are the only pact in Asia. And what we basically have is we are a voluntary business initiative, and in like all pacts. And the major feature of the pact is that we provide a platform for the entire value chain. So all the resin manufacturers, all the converters, all the brands, waste management organizations, recyclers, they are all on one platform, so that we can see what are the challenges with the ecosystem, how we can come together and solve those challenges. And the more important part is how we design solutions that don't become the problem for tomorrow. So that's why having all the stakeholders on the plastics value chain is very important. Secondly, we are very scientific and neutral, and I think all the pacts globally have this feature that whatever information is put out, whatever intelligence or knowledge is put out, it has to be scientific and it has to be neutral, because only then the targets of the pact or the vision of the pact will be achieved. And like all the pacts, we do not endorse individual businesses or initiatives. I think Karen and Jeremy discussed the targets of the Kenya Plastics Pact. So the structure of the targets in the India Plastics Pact is the same, but the numbers might differ, keeping in mind the Indian context. So we also have the target for elimination, where we decide what is problematic or unnecessary, and then we try to sort of remove it from the packaging portfolio. Then we have a target for 100% of plastic packaging to be reusable, recyclable, or compostable. And of course, compostable comes with a caveat that you can see below. The third target about recycling is we want 50% effective recycling of the plastic packaging that is put on the market by our signatories, and 25% recycled content, because that's where the loop is closed. So we have around 58 members across the value chain. We have packaging producers, we have brand owners, we have retailers, and we also have recyclers who are into rigid, flexible, PET, non-PET. So that we get the overall 360-degree view of what is happening in the post-consumer ecosystem and how do we make recycling better, what works in the recycling. And we also have 16 supporters, and these supporters are a range of organizations. We have waste management organizations, but we also have think tanks and policy advocacy groups. Apart from that, we also have some investors on board, which sort of have invested in the companies which manufacture FMCG products. So they also percolate the Pact's principle into their portfolio companies. So it's important to have all the stakeholders of the value chain. Now, talking about value chain, there's one thing which we have to understand, and I think that's a systems approach that we have, because if we want to change the condition of the way plastic is being used today, and we want it to be used in the future, because again, see, plastics are not going away. They are an important part of our daily life. We need it, and but there are challenges with it, and we need to solve those challenges. But to solve those challenges, it is very important to understand the packaging life cycle, because when we talk about any plastics pact globally, it addresses the major concern with packaging. So if you look at the packaging life cycle, there's this manufacturing, then there's product filling at the brand's filling factory. Then the product is distributed to retail outlets. Then there are, of course, consumers who consume the product and dispose the packaging. And then there's the end of life or recycling, which is the portal for the packaging for a new life, right? And that's where the buck stops. Now, all the design guidelines or whatever we want to discuss, whatever we plan to discuss, at the end of the day, the buck stops at the recycler's end. If the recycler says that, okay, this packaging is okay to be recycled, we have to make such packaging in order to have it to be recycled, right? So that's where it is very important. So, I mean, for jumping directly on the design guidelines that we have made for India, we'll quickly go through the design elements, because when we made the design guidelines, we thought that, okay, just having those design guidelines won't be enough. We have to talk to the brands, and we have to make sure that every design component is explained, every design component is non-problematic for everyone, and every design element serves its purpose. For the brands, it's very important, because some are food brands. So that's very important. The safety aspect, the shelf life aspect is very much taken into consideration, but at the same time, we have to see each and every element. So what we did is we sort of divided that. We have rigids, and then we have flexibles, and then there is decoration, then there's polymer choice, and then attachment. So we are sort of trying to address the recyclability of each and every component in packaging. And since we have been doing that since the last 5 years now, and we have collaboratively developed and agreed, we have collaboratively developed design guides. We have the one for overall rigid packaging. Then we have one for food contact PET bottles. Then we have one for non-food contact grade HDPE bottles. Then last year, we also came up with the one on flexibles. And then since we also have retailers and e-commerce companies on the India Plastics Pact, we also came up with a design and procurement guide for e-commerce and delivery platforms. So that's how we are trying to address the challenges of the ecosystem related to packaging. Now I will go through the design recommendations for flexible packaging with this is specifically with the in the Indian context. What are the challenges that we have here? What are the what do the recyclers want, and how do they want the packaging to be designed? It will be a question for brands, and it will be a question for converters. But when we talk about the regulatory landscape in the next few slides, you'll see why it is important to follow those design guidelines, right? So again, I'll not go much into detail here. It's the same traffic light system which Jeremy explained a few minutes ago. We have red, amber, and green. Again, red being problematic, amber being acceptable but can be improved. Green is the one which is desirable by the recyclers in India. So coming to the polymer choice, what we want essentially is to have a single polymer packaging. So India has a lot of products in terms of personal care, home care, food, and all those products require different type of barriers. But uh, I mean, whatever products are placed on the market, they do have recyclable alternatives. They do have monomaterial or monopolymer flexible packaging, right? So when we talk about that, we do have solutions available for all. And the most important thing that I want to point out here is when we put a multiple incompatible layers of polymers together, then it becomes problematic for recycling, right? So the only way to go is having monopolymer or monomaterial packaging. Talking about pigments, I think this also has been explained in what Jeremy told, that darker colors, the more darker colors are, then the more chances of the recyclate being of a lower quality. But at the same time, what we also have to see is since in India there are a lot of there's currently manual collection of all plastic waste. But a lot of AI-based and near-infrared based sensors are used in sorting, especially by the recyclers and waste management organizations. So what we have to do is we have to see if avoid the use of carbon black or avoid the use of dark or black pigments, because those sorters are not able to catch the packaging very perfectly. So the more paler colors, the more chances are that the packaging will be collected. The packaging will have a higher price in the post-consumer market. So again, barrier coatings and metallization, the use of PVC, polystyrene, and nylon, we really don't recommend because those are not recyclable at scale in India. Barriers such as EVOH and EVA are used. But again, recyclers would very much want the material to be pure. But even if even if the brands are using the barriers such as EVA and EVOH, we recommend that the total percentage of those barriers should be less than 3%. And if they're using metallization, it is recommended to use that in a vaporized form because that's in Armstrong, and that is sort of acceptable by the recyclers. There are caveats to it, but the recyclers in India say that they will be able to overcome that challenge as well. And at the same time, brands are also changing their packaging designs, but vaporized form of aluminium is somewhat acceptable. Additives and fillers, I think the additive has to do with the overall weight as well as the density of packaging. So it's very important that the density of packaging should be kept minimum, and the use of additives, tackifiers should be kept limited. And the only choice over here, what we recommend the brands is do not use such master batch or an additive which amends the product density. That's it. We've kept it very high level. So in terms of printing and inks, I think a lot of companies are moving towards water-based inks. I understand they are expensive, but I think as the market picks up and as the time demands, or maybe as the regulation demands in future, there will be a move towards it. That's what we have we've been known. And Also, now there are a few types of solvent-based inks that are available, which can be washed off. This is what we recommend. And also, I think inks without heavy metals is a no-brainer that I think most of the countries have banned the use of heavy metals in food grade inks. So I think that's already there. But even in terms of recycling, there are certain problems when inks with heavy metals are, packaging which have inks with heavy metals, they are into the extruder. So we don't recommend that. Coming to closure caps and nozzles, a lot of these stand-up pouches and have spouts, they have caps, they have nozzles. So what we sort of recommend is that if, let's say, if you are using a flexible pouch which is made up of MDO PE, try to use a PE based cap. It can be HDP, it can be LDP, but it would be the best if you could use, the same type of polymer. Of course, it will be recycled in a different stream, but it's still much better. Maybe closures from the same polymer family would also work. For example, if you have a pack pack which is made up of PE, you can have the spout or the nozzle as PE, so that would be fine. But aluminium, PVC, PET closures, these are not recommended because they might cause a lot of problem when it comes to recycling. Labels, I think the best thing is to not have any label on the packaging, because labels do create problems sometimes if they are not able to, if recyclers are not able to remove those labels completely, right? And if labels are made up of same polymers, that would also be fine. So same what we had in the caps closures, we have a similar recommendation in terms of labels as well. Again, adhesives, there are different types of adhesives which are there. We have what non-soluble adhesive in water. We have hot melt glues, which we really don't want brands to use. That's what we have recommended in our design guide. Again, we are okay with water soluble or alkali soluble adhesives, which sort of up to 80 degrees C, which sort of melt into 80 degrees C and they leave no residue. So that's what we want. And I think polyurethane, acrylic, or natural rubber latex adhesives are easily removable during the recycling process. So if it would be the best if you use that. Now there is some nuance in that. When we put out this design guide, some of the adhesive manufacturers, we know, they told us that polyurethane adhesives do have some amount of PVC. And now there are adhesives without PVC in polyurethane. So yes, there are some developments going on in that area. But yeah, I think this is what we have recommended. So when we talk about these design guides, it's very important to know that first we have made sure that we sort of consulted to the recyclers at least 3 or 4 times when we came up with these guidelines. Then when the recyclers gave us a few recommendations, then we went back to brands to ask, okay, recyclers say this is the problem. We want to corroborate with you whether you can change it or not, because this is a serious problem that most of our signatories are saying, and the brand said yes, we are going to change it, because it's not only the recyclers who face the problem, because if we don't follow the design guidelines, the brands will also face some problems, because the law says that there has to be recycling, there has to be recycled content, which brings me to the next part, the regulatory landscape in India. So before we talk about the targets of EPR and the cost and everything, let me just break down the EPR for you in a very simple way. So in India, the EPR for plastics, it only covers plastic packaging, right? It doesn't cover anything in terms of paper. It doesn't cover anything in terms of glass or anything. It only covers plastic. Because I looked at the PPWR guidelines for Europe, and I also looked at the South African EPR. I think they cover all the packaging materials: glass, paper, metal, plastic, and I think there are more. But in India, there's only plastic packaging which is covered under EPR. Then the primary division is also very different in India. We have rigids and flexibles as the primary division, because again in South Africa, I think there's PET, rigids, there's flexibles, there's vinyls, styrene, multi-layered. I think there are different types of divisions depending upon the local context. And even in PPWR, there's non-PET contact sensitive, there's PET contact sensitive, there's SUP beverage bottles, and then there are other few categories in which the plastics are divided. So in India, plastics are divided into 5 categories. Category one is rigids. Category two is flexibles, which are only plastics. So, these PET bond poly PE structures, PET bond poly PP structures. So they are non-recyclable, but they're still only plastics. Then category three is flexibles, multi-material, where we have beverage cartons, where we have packaging with thick aluminum foils. Those all fall under category three. Category 4 and 5 are compostables and biodegradables, but that's an emerging area right now, and even the government is figuring out how to move on these these elements. I mean, these packaging materials. So we'll have some development in the next couple of years on these as well. But currently, we only focus on category 1, 2, and 3 because that's where the chunk lies. So again, the obligated entities are producers, importers, and brand owners, because that's they collectively place the packaging on the market. Then I think this is the most important part, because I've my interactions with the Global Pact members and whoever I've had outside India, they said that the Indian EPR is very ambitious. It's difficult. A lot of brands tell us that it is difficult to meet the targets, but it is what it is. It is ambitious. So we have targets on collection. We have targets on recycling. We have targets on reuse as well, and we have targets on use of recycled plastics. Of course, reuse we can't do it for flexible packaging, so it only applies to rigid packaging. So I'll go through these targets quickly. I understand we are sort of running behind the time, so let me just go through that. So targets for collection, I think we are in 26, 27 right now, and all the companies are already doing 100% collection of what they place on the market, or the EPR target that they've declared. Then there is target for minimum level of recycling. Now in India, a lot of flexible packaging, or the MLP, multi-layered packaging, it goes for waste to energy or end of life, or it even goes to cement kilns as alternative fuel resource. But the government has said that the government has said that there needs to be a minimum level of recycling. So no matter how much how much plastic you put on the market, you should recycle certain percentage of it. Now, if you look at the categories on your screen, category 1 is the rigid packaging. It says that 80, I mean, currently we are in 26, 27. So 70% of the rigid packaging which is placed on the market should be collected and recycled. It cannot go into the end of life or cement kiln. And in India, the rigid packaging usually doesn't end up in a cement kiln or a waste to energy plant, because it's high value and it is collected. Category 2 is where the major challenge is, because a lot of category 2, which is flexible plastic, goes to waste to energy or as an alternate fuel resource. But there is a target on that too, that at least 50% of flexible packaging placed on the market has to be collected back and has to be recycled and has to be put back into the economy. Category 3, which is the multi-material, like the aseptic beverage cartons or packaging with thick aluminum foil. Again, that is the minimum level of recycling target for that is 50% as well. So brands are doing it. There are challenges, but the industry is doing it. Category 4 is new. I mean, in terms of compostables, we are really figuring out the mechanism on how to track it, and the government has involved the local bodies in keeping a check and reporting for compostables. But there's still a target of 70% for recycling. So we'll see, maybe next year we'll get an idea of how much is collected and how much is recycled, or how much is industrially composted. So these were the targets for minimum level of recycling. Now this is very interesting target for reuse. So there's a very tricky, these are very tricky targets because, yeah, Jeremy,
sorry to
yeah,
cut you short. And you can try to summarize before we
sure,
bring in Aline, and then open
sure,
the,
sure.
yeah.
Sure, I understand. I completely understand. So the packaging for targets for use are divided into different, for packaged drinking water and for other products. So the targets are different for both of them. And this is where the most important part is the use of recycled plastics. Again, category 1, category 2, and category 3. There's mandatory use of recycled plastics, which the brands have to do. There are no targets for compostables and biodegradables. Now, just very quickly, I'll sum up what CII is doing. CII, through its annual report and engagement with the members, identified that there are a lot of problems within the industry. I mean, we tried to understand the problem statement that okay, there are solutions in the ecosystem, but somehow there are challenges in taking up those solutions. And because if we have to implement recyclable solutions, we need to have some investment. We need to be prepared for vacant lines. We have to be prepared for downtimes and higher operational costs, and be prepared for trials in the market. So there's limited budget, the innovation slows down, and there's need for financial support. And that's where CII came in. We created 5 consortias, and we sort of selected a few high selling SKUs and did some trials, which happened to be successful. And we will be coming out with a final report in August 2026. So these are the consortias. We are working with Godrej Consumer, we are working with Huhtamaki, we are working with PepsiCo and ITC to switch the packaging from non-recyclable to recyclable. These are some of the case examples over the year where the brands have switched from non-recyclable to recyclable packaging. Then there's future of packaging design for circularity. I won't go into the details, but there's one thing. I will share this presentation with Jeremy. And if you want to get in touch with me, Jeremy already has my email and my phone number. Please do reach out. Thank you so much. Over to you, Jeremy. And I'm so sorry if I crossed my time.
No worries. Thank you, Abhishek. And I apologize. I see time is not on our side. I'll kindly ask that we give it 15 minutes to give Aline to share perspective from the Mexican space, and then 5 minutes to close off with any feedback from the team or the people in the call. So Aline, I think 10 minutes, try to summarize.
Yeah, thank you, Jeremy. Do you see my screen fine? Sorry, this moderator view is driving me crazy,
Yes.
but I don't know if you see it. Yeah?
Yeah, we did. Go on. Yes.
Perfect. So thank you for the invitation and congratulations on this great guide. I will try to be very brief. I'm from Mexico, so we are not that far as India and Kenya in advancing in these plastic works and the recyclability and the flexibles. So yeah, we are not there yet, but I can share the necessities we've been identifying in Mexico and working with LATAM countries. In the PAX encounter on January of this year, we start talking about this problem we had with flexibles, not only in Latin America, but with Kenya, with India's pact. And we talk about that even we have different advances, we still have similar challenge in this theme, no? Mainly, for example, in end markets, that was a big theme. So as you know, and as you could listen, we are a part of this network, of this huge network. We are the most recent pact, the Mexico's pact. We are the baby pact, and we launched in March 2024. And from this day on, we've been working with all the actors from the value chain, but navigating through the complexity of a country that on one side didn't have a specific law for plastics, no? As Abby exposed, they have the EPR and they have um, goals in place and everything, and we do not. We now have the National Circular Economy Law that the government just launched on January of this year, and it includes an EPR, so we are super happy about it. But we didn't have any of these tools before, and when we launched, so it was really difficult to show the value of the pact and to show the companies that they must commit to this to this global challenge, no? Because at that time they had no pressure to make this or to advance it to this. And now we are waiting for the secondary regulations of the law, but we do not have yet specific goals. So we are trying to talk with the government and all the stakeholders to have ambitious goals and to help to transition to a more circularity plastic system, no? However, collaboration and precisely global and regional synergies has helped us to reach circularity goals and working groups with specific pilots that are important for Mexican companies. And this, of course, includes flexibles. Um, and in the Mexican Plastic Pact, as I told you, we do not have targets as other pacts because, yeah. Sorry, Jeremy? Yeah.
Just checking the slides. The slides are not moving. If you are trying to move
Okay.
to the next slides, it's still
You
stuck
are
on the first.
seeing, okay. You are not seeing my map? This map?
Yeah, it's there.
visible.
Okay.
Please
Okay.
proceed.
Okay. You're in the same
Perfect,
slide.
perfect.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm in the same slide. Sorry. Um, So yeah, as other packs have, we do not have targets. That's why I didn't move the slide because we do not have these specific targets yet because we need to align with the new national regulations and we are waiting for them to be sure companies are advancing towards their goals through the pact and not duplicating the work, no? That it's one of our principles as a pact network. Um, but we are working through specific pilots and working groups, such as, for example, the high impact polyesterenes that are the plastic that you see in the yogurts and all these desserts, bio-based content, PP, and of course, flexibles that is a priority for our members. So we have less members than Kenya and India and other packs because all of these contexts, but we have a strong pool of collaborators that give scientific certainty to the decisions of the pact. And among these collaborators, we have the main academia centers in the country, local governments and authorities, NGO, the Consumers Good Forum, etc. No? So this has helped us to give really strong decisions, and when we have a technical guides and things like that, even if we have now few activators, we have these collaborators that are well positioned in Mexico, no? And well, I will be really quickly on this context, but we start working in flexibles because all this data, no, nearly 50 million tons of flexible packaging are produced in the world, and this is 40% of all plastic packaging by weight, and it has become the highest, the plastic packaging with the highest growth rate in recent years. And according to the IMF, the Ellen MacArthur Foundation, up to 80% of this type of plastic leak into the ocean. 29% are multi and 51% are monomaterial. And if we continue like that, in the next 15 years, in 2040, we could have more than 20 trillion flexible packaging in our oceans. So we have a big deal here, no? And in Mexico, Mexico also has a big problem. First, because we do not count with a baseline. We have an official inventory from the government and the academia that made them together, but private collection centers and all the work of the informal waste workers were not counted here. So we have like a vision, but we don't have a complete baseline in our country. But according to the inventory, Mexico generates between 5 and 7 million tons of plastic waste per year. And we have a problem per capita because our per capita consumption, I always say that us as Mexicans made another Mexican each year because we consume 66 kilos of plastic per habitant per year. And of these 66 kilos, almost all goes immediately to waste because they are single-use plastics, no? So we generate almost 59 plastic waste kilos per inhabitant per year. And of this data, between 38 and 58% are poorly managed. No, so we have always this equivalent of 66 aircraft of mismanaged waste. And we have, of all this, 32% is flexible films that leak to our ecosystems. And as you know, Mexico has big ecosystems and huge biodiversity, and we have a big problem of plastic leakage. No? So this data reflects the urgency of addressing the management of flexible plastics from their designs to their final disposal. And that's why we needed to join efforts with other countries and other experts because we are lacking of information, of basic information, of a baseline, etc., etc. So we made these synergies first in LATAM. We hope that we can make synergies with other countries, but we are working right now with the pacts of LATAM that are Chile and Colombia. And we have the same challenges to the circularity, no? A lack of infrastructure for collection, classification, and treatment, a weak characterization of waste, and the registration of in the collection centers. We don't have incentives for recyclers, companies, and citizens. We don't have support to recyclers and the informal waste workers. They do not know the value of flexibles. No, they just let them and pick PT or things that will get an income for them that represents an income from them. And it is the collection and management due to its low weight and large volume. It's really difficult. And we have a lack of information among the citizens. No, as the citizens, we don't know how to separate it even in our houses. So right now we are working in, we don't have a guide of ours like India and Kenya that has developed all these technical tools, but we are start working in some things. First, we have right now an innovation challenge for flexibles. So we start with this with Chile and Colombia, and we said like we will have a challenge to address a problematic plastic. So we talked with all the members and collaborators of the three pacts, and we said, which plastic do you prefer to address if we need to find some solutions and innovations to accelerate its circularity? And the big winner was flexibles. All the members, all the collaborators said, please focus on flexibles. So we start working with them in which type of flexibles, and they said, please, problematic flexibles like sachets, like the wrappers, the labels. Second, to enable the recycling of flexible plastics through technologies, know how to transition to monomateriality, technology that facilitate their recovery, things like that. And the third point was end markets, mainly for polyolefins, no PP or PE or mixed, but we really need end markets. So we start working on this. We launched this challenge. We said we are looking for 10 innovative solutions. Sorry, it's in Spanish, but it was our marketing for the three countries. And one big finding we saw is that in Latin America, we don't have yet these solutions. No, anybody was prepared. We opened these, we offered some funding, etc., and we didn't get what we expected. So we selected 5 innovations that were from experts from the three countries, but they are not these final solutions for these three problems. No, so we need to really advance and we need to really work with experts in the three countries to get there. So now we have 5 selected innovations. We are in the development of a cycle of trainings and technical strengthening with experts. 3 of these innovations are creditors to funding, 2 to technical supports, and we will notify our companies, our members, and collaborators for piloting if they see useful to pilot one of these presented innovations. They will have one-on-one work with other actors, and we are not yet in the part of publishing the winners because we are now training them and giving them some capacity buildings, so they can get to a full solution, no? But it was a big learning that we were like thinking that we are getting to 10 innovative solutions, and no, we are not there, but we can work to get there, no? Another thing we made was Canada has this guide that it's the pathways for transitioning to flexible monomaterials. So as I told you, we are not yet to make our own guide, but we took the one from the Canada's Pact and adapted to Latin America context. So we first said like, let's translate this guide because it is super useful, but then we realized that it was not the same context of Canada to the context of Latin America. So we translate it, of course, but we work with all the members and collaborators of the 3 pacts to adapt to Latin America. And this is an example of the network's work, no? So the objectives of this guide is to be a support tool for companies in LATAM that are identifying or have in mind like transitioning to monomaterials in flexible packaging as their circularity strategies, and it provides practical information, guidance on the design and manufacturing. It does not have yet the colors, but it has many useful things for transitioning to PE and PP monomaterial flexibles. So it is adapted from the Canadian Plastic Pact. It is also based on the Consumers Good Forum Golden Rules, mainly on the Rule 6 for increasing recycling in flexible packaging. It is also based on the APR design guide. And we made 2 technical and participatory workshops with all the members and collaborators. They were really rich conversations to see what we need in Latin America to have an useful tool, no? So these are examples. It has like the main polymers, barriers, and properties we need to take into account according to the necessities of permeability or oxygen barriers or things like that. So they provide like the polymers and what barriers they have and the resistance. So companies can approach to this more easily, no? And this guide also has like how do citizens participate because it was a big question that the members of the pact asked us. So we keep in mind the key role that environmental education promoted by various organizations play here. And this guide includes some of these examples. No, for example, in Mexico we have this flexible that has been growing and growing and growing. It's the biggest event in Mexico where this organization of Ecolana receive flexibles, partner with brands and give rewards to the participants, and this has boosted the participation from all over the center of Mexico. Right now, it is based in Mexico City and it is celebrated each 3 months. But now people from other parts of the center of Mexico comes with big bags of flexibles. They organize with their community and go and separate their flexibles, no? And they get rewards for that. And we have other campaigns. For example, in Chile, they have this they have this gaming word of hard with flexibles, go hard with flexibles. That is a communication and education campaign. Another other examples, no? And we made finally with also with this all these discussions and all these workshops, we made not like the red and green and yellow, but we made like a potential of products to transition to monomaterial. And we divided in high, medium, and low. Sorry, it's in Spanish, but it's the photo of the guide. Um, but we saw if they count with a recycling change already, infrastructure and investment needed, if the products they need the specific characteristics because of their content. For example, if they got fat food or freeze food or things like that, among other considerations, we put it in high, medium, or low potential, and we provide some examples, no, like toy packs or package from cookies or package for snacks. So this was a big discussions with members of the pack to see which products has more potential to address and work with this in a regional way, no. So you can download the guide here. I put some links here about the other plastic packs of Latin America and the original guide of the Canadian plastic. And thank you very much.
Thank you, Eileen. And I'll hand over quickly to Karin to take us through the next session.
Thanks. Yeah, the next session is actually the questions and answers that are arising after this super informative session. I just want to thank both of you again. As much as it seems very technical, it's good to highlight like what in practicality does that mean and how beyond guidelines, what kind of awareness do you want to create? What kind of innovation projects and challenges can you start based on that? We always say that for the pact, you need to have sort of your foundation of where you are with flexibles in order to know where you want to go and how to reach that point. So this is why we've actually decided to set this up first. And our next steps on our end of the Plastic Pact will be also more practical. So there's always a two-layer of communication within this topic, which is one, if you have to understand polymers, and the other one is in general to contribute and to transition to a circular economy for plastics. So the next steps will be that we create a practical manual on how to actually move from what Jeremy calls the red lights and the amber lights to green lights, and how does that look like? What does that mean? What type of materials are we talking about? What's the difference in specs, etc. So we will follow this up with a practical manual, but we would love to hear also your feedback. Is this helpful? Also, if you have specific questions that are for Abhishek or for Aline in Mexico, also very welcome.
I don't know, Nash, and perhaps because I know if someone wants to speak, they'll need the mic access. I don't know whether they can raise the answer so that you allow them.
Yes, please.
No questions at this stage? Everyone is digesting all the technical masterclass.
There was a question from George to, I think, Abhishek. So are there any companies are there companies who are members in your plastic pact who are from tourism and hospitality industry?
Yes. So I would say there's this FMCG consumer goods company called as ITC, which also owns luxury hotel chains across South Asia. And I mean, there was the ITC hotels company recently got separated, but we do have connects in there as well. So yes, there are a few hospitality companies.
Anyone else?
You can see the reactions from Lexman to Abhishek. I think you know each other. He's reacting to the presentation, great perspective. Same with Florence Abonyo.
Oh, they're not able to speak. Nahashon?
Nobody has raised a hand.
How about
I
in the
think
chat?
Meghna wants to.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Thank you so much for the opportunity. I represent, sorry, as my camera comes on, I just wanted to share that I represent PepsiCo on this call. So Abhishek, thank you for the shout out on the work we're doing together. We're clearly, very engaged on this topic and enthusiastic about what the pact is looking to do in Kenya and just more broadly across all the various pacts, including Mexico. So really look forward to continuing to partner, seeing how we can move this forward, incorporating, the importance of building the infrastructure so that we're driving the car and changing the wheels and the oil and everything else we need to do while we're doing it. So thank you so much for the sort of overview and look forward to next steps as we go on this journey.
Yes, I think we the companies who are participating in the consortia, including PepsiCo, I think that's we had a call yesterday on strategizing how we take it to the industry, how we propagate it, and what are the next steps. Because end markets recycling is something that we are seeing is developing as an area of work. So yes, we are thinking about that.
Thank you. And I'm thinking here of the mention in the Mexico example of the Consumer Goods Forum, the Design for Recycling Golden Rules, etc. It was really great stuff, but also the reality on the ground. I think, Jeremy, you've touched on it in terms of, what the context is and where we'd probably need the infrastructure and the collection to be before we can be confident that 2030 target can be met, given where we are at the moment. So, of course, we, remain committed to doing our level best to do our part of things, but I think there's a lot of other pieces that need to fall into place, and I think it'll be good to get learnings as well from other markets, including yourself, Abhishek, how you take the whole, all the actors in the picture with you.
And this is something that someone from PepsiCo, we have this person called as Prasoon in PepsiCo India, and Deepak. They've said that it's a yeah. So they've said that it's a journey. We will make mistakes. We will figure out, and we will move on. That's how it will be.
Thanks so much. Those are my comments for today, but thank you.
Okay. Simon Alison, you had a question?
Yeah, I put it in the chat, yeah? And that was to Jeremy, where I was wondering about how it's received by the companies, the brands, when you discuss this? I mean, Kenya Plastic Pact has been around for a while. Are you reaching out to them? Are they receptive, positive, negative? How is it working since the EPR has been launched and everything? I'm very curious.
The EPR guidelines, I mean, the targets specifically, they came in 2022. And while the companies are trying a lot of things, I mean, design for recycling is something that the industry is very ambitious about, because we see a lot of companies, having the interest in the films and flexibles working group. That's probably the biggest group that we have within the India Plastics Pact. So I think that is coming out well. But yes, there are certain challenges when it comes to reuse, especially the EPR targets on reuse, because they haven't really figured out how to do that in the Indian setting, because a lot of the packaging is repurposed at homes. It flows through the economy. So reuse is something that we're still figuring out. But I think use of recycled content is also something that's slightly challenging, given most of the flexible packaging is used for is food products. So that we're figuring out, but we have sort of solved the challenge with the PET beverage bottles. That's nearly solved. It's just some market dynamics which are sort of here and there, but we've solved it. So companies are trying. Companies are very positive, but yes, there are certain things which the companies are saying to the government to include in the EPR, and I think it will take some time, maybe a couple of years, and the companies will be able to meet those targets.
Thank you.
I think, Simon, you are raising the question to me. So very quickly, we've seen lots of interest. Everyone is, especially the brands, with the new EPR regulation, they need to comply, and everyone actually is trying to put themselves together to see how can they be provided with some technical guidance to try and phase out some of the polymers that have been identified. So the reception is warm, but at the same time, there is that need for more, what I would call, like Karin was talking, that kind of visual aid guide, so that at least for people who are not very technical on this can quickly understand. But we'll try to continue the engagement with the brands, even as we prepare resultant manuals from this document. Then I think Lottie wants to say something before we close off, and apologize for running overboard. You have the mic access, Lottie. It's unmute. You have the... Okay. I think Karin on the next steps, and then we close off the session.
Yeah, exactly. So I had touched upon it already a bit, but we really like to have the next step as a more how to implement, how to deal with it, how to work with the design guidelines, because that's a very important part of our work as the pact as well. And then there are several things to mention as next steps, actually, because this is one of our activities that we want to undertake, but the Kenyan Plastic Pact is busy with an awareness campaign, especially for hospitality and tourism industry, on no single-use plastic. So that ties in more to target 1, elimination of unnecessary and problematic plastics. We are looking also at innovation challenge. So how can you actually improve on the packaging itself, whether it's PET that needs to become clear, or HDPE without additives, or having a change in the flexibles that you're using. So that is another item. And we're also looking into seeing if we can push for reduce, actually. So not so much on making packaging thinner, but how can you actually reduce the amount of plastic packaging that you're using? And that we do collectively with other pacts. So that's what we're working on with the Polish pact and the pact from Portugal. So this is where we are now. Maybe Jeremy, you want to add as well. We're also working at, thanks Nahashon for the vibrant launch. Also working at a project that we hopefully start on, really looking how to reduce the amount of plastics that end up in the environment at the coast. So hopefully we can launch that very soon as well. So that's from my end. Thank you so much for all your attention following this masterclass. Thank you, Jeremy, for your very technical and thorough work. Thank you, Abhishek, for also contributing from the Indian context and Indian perspective and knowledge, and Aline as well from the side that we were addressing as our follow-up, more practical, more hands-on, and more how to work with it and what to do next. So thank you very much, everyone.
Okay.